So the book that I chose was The Sissy Duckling by Harvey Fierstein and illustrated by Henry Cole. Um, this storybook examines gender and gender stereotypes that are taught very early. We know that gender stereotypes are taught from basically preconception when there's the idea of like a gender reveal party and people always asking, oh, are you having a boy or having a girl? And everything from toys to clothes, everything like that is tailored to gender from early on. This story is about liking things that are different than other boy ducks like. Elmer, the main character, enjoys cooking and painting. He doesn't like playing sports, and he doesn't have like aggressive tendencies like wanting to fight. So he gets a little bit bullied in the story, and then he ends up running away and sets up a house. He ends up saving his father from hunters because he ran away, and his father originally judged him, but over winter, after he saved him, they got to know each other. The moral of this story is that it's okay to be special. It's okay to be different. So learning about different genders. Gender differences associated with children almost from conception. As I said earlier, toys, clothes, everything is marketed to a specific gender. You want to know the gender so you can paint the room a certain color for the babies. Um, Games are often played, gender stereotypes, like you see boys' toys being trucks and girls' toys being Barbies. And you see that um, gen- gender boys play football and girls play um, either like softball, or girls will be cheerleaders. And gender really is an arbitrary cultural idea, and this is something that's becoming more and more common. So learning about the differences in gender perspectives is important, and teaching children to be okay and happy as their unique self is really important. And as I said, gender fluidity is becoming such more of a cultural norm, and teaching it from an early age, like you don't have to conform to the stereotype that you are told is your gender. Diversity. So 5 examples of diversity that we saw in Elmer's story was that Elmer was fond of doing housework and setting up a house. He even set up a house for him and his father over the winter, and that's what saved them. And Elmer was more interested in puppets at a football game than the game. Most of the time, boys want to cheer for the game and put on more paint and be all about that, but he was like, nah, I just want to play with puppets. Elmer was not good at baseball, even though his papa encouraged it because it was more culturally appropriate. His papa basically forced him to do it, and he was not good at it, and he was like, I don't know what I want to do. Can I do a halftime show instead? He wanted to perform. And Elmer was bullied and called a sissy because of the baseball game and at school, and he was even chased down after school by bullies. When Elma and his papa were snowed in for the winter, Elma taught his papa all the different things he enjoyed, like cooking and painting and crafts. And there was this really nice experience where his papa learned to appreciate him, because previously his papa didn't appreciate him. He judged him, which I think I'll talk about in a couple more slides. Let's see. So, early education. Should this book be included in early education? There's a lot of pros, only one con, which I don't know if it's really a con. So the pro would definitely be teaching it is okay to be different. Teaching everyone is special in their own way. Teaching that gender stereotypes do not have to apply to everyone. Teaching that a positive attitude, even when people are mean to you, And teaching children, they can even save the day or help out. I think help out is a better thing, even when adults don't believe it because they can't see who they are. The con that I think is relevant, because in the news right now we have a lot of stories of book bans or people trying to ban books, in particular talking about like homosexuality and things like that. So this could potentially be a book because it goes against the cultural norm of gender stereotypes. That could be something that people would want to ban. But my conclusion is that yes, this book should be taught early on because the pros outweigh the cons, and it teaches more positive things than it does negative things. Okay. So previous generations. So the reason it's pretty easy to see the reason why talking about gender stereotypes or gender fluidity would not be accepted in earlier generations. Basically, gender conformity was expected. Girls wore dresses in the 1800s, even up until the 50s or 60s, like girls wore dresses, men wore trousers. Then you get into some of the things of people who are gender fluid, like transgender in the 1800s. They were criminalized or put in the mental asylum in the US. In the 50s, the housewife mentality, the men would do the work, go to work, the women would take care of the house. That's just the way it is. That's all that would happen, and there was no ifs, ands, buts about that. The feminist movement encouraged a breakaway in the extent that encouraged women to get more freedom, but also byproduct of that is men didn't have to conform as much either. And we're seeing more results of that now. Drag or cross-dressing was highly discouraged early in previous generations, and even homosexuality, which sometimes, not always, but sometimes homosexuality, the people, you have names like butch for women that are much more masculine, and sometimes men are feminine. That's not always the case with homosexuals, but sometimes that's true. And the gay rights movement supported gender nonconformity. And kind of the current trend that I'm seeing now is this idea of the they, them pronouns, which is picture right here. So this idea that people are starting to be like, this is how I identify. I'm gender binary, or I'm gender fluid. I don't identify with either. So stereotypes about differences. So the stereotypes about differences from this story is that Elmer is called a sissy because he's different and doesn't like sports and doesn't conform to what is typical. And Elmer's papa thinks something's wrong with him. Elmer hears his papa talking about him and saying, everyone thinks he's weird and he's not normal. And this is kind of the typical response that you hear from kind of the more masculine, aggressive previous generations talking about their kids, like, why can't he just be like me? And also the gender stereotype of Elmer, he could not have survived out on his own for the winter if he didn't cook the food or play the games and thrive with Papa. He would have not have thrived with his Papa. He would not have survived. He would not have saved his Papa's life, and that would have been a bad thing. What others face. These are some of the things that Elmer has faced in the story. Elmer was made fun of as a sissy after a baseball game. Elmer ran away because he felt like an outcast. Elmer was bullied at school and ganged up on by other ducklings. He was even chased out after school. They hid for him and tried to find him. And Elmer felt there was something wrong with him. Basically, people who are seen as other often face discrimination, prejudice, bullying. They face people judging them and being mean to them because they're not the mainstream normal. So what I learned from Elmer about dealing with difficulties is that he thanked the players after the football game. He was being cheerful. And I think that's really relevant to a personal story of mine because my mom has multiple sclerosis and she's now in a wheelchair and she's in a nursing home and she can't shower on her own. She, can hardly use the phone. Like her life is not what I think she imagined her life would be before she got this diagnosis of being different and having a disability. And now, even despite that, she is the most cheerful, most positive person I know. So sometimes dealing with struggles of being different and dealing with difficulties, sometimes having faith in God and believing it's okay and being cheerful is some of the best weapon against that. Elmer's parents were also comforting. Basically, his dad came around later, but his mom would, cuddle him and say, "You're special. Like, you're special. We'll see it one day. We'll see why one day." And dealing with difficulties, being determined to do the right thing. Even though it's really easy when you're handling difficulties to just be like, okay, I'm gonna lay down and not do the right thing. If you do the right thing, like Elmer saving his papa, there's good rewards that will come from that. So tolerance or celebration? I think it's both in this story. Tolerance to me means just accepting who they are. Like, okay, I'll tolerate you. I accept who you are. That's good. And celebration means embracing and enjoying the differences. Like, oh my God, I love you for who you are. And so I see that there was tolerance after Elmer proved himself by staying alive all winter and saving Papa. But there was with the other ducks. But there was celebration at the end of the story with the quote that I posted on a beginning slide about how he remains special. And Elmer, there was also celebration in the fact that Elmer eventually traveled the world and realized he was not alone. There was a lot of other ducklings like him, and I think that's a celebration. So thank you for listening to this. I think this was a great story to review, and I think it was really sweet, and it didn't push too much for children. I think it just lays gentle foundation of making kids think, and I think that's really important. So thank you.